And we welcome you to the New York studios of AFA Today. Kevin McCullough, as always, grateful to have you with us here in New York as we kick off another edition of the broadcast. The Supreme Court, as One News Now has reported, has agreed to take up the issue of the contraception mandate issue in Obamacare. That should be an interesting outcome, and stay tuned to onenewsnow.com for the latest on that as it continues to move forward. My name is Kevin McCullough. I'm always glad to have you with us here in our New York studios. We've got a lot for you on this edition, so please stay with us for the full amount today because we have in the next segments, we've got a visit with Brooke Goldstein of the Lawfare Project that relates directly to the issue of Pastor Saeed Abedini, the issue of Iran, and the deal that was made. We've got a little bit more in-depth understanding of it now that the Lawfare Project people have taken a look at it, and I think you're going to want to be here for that discussion. So that's coming up in the next segment here. But another story that you probably heard about a little bit earlier this week was the story about that New Jersey waitress. Now, did you hear about this? There was a waitress in New Jersey that had claimed that a family that had come in and had dinner with her had written something very mean, very untoward, because they perceived her to be someone who engages in homosexual activity. The self-identified lesbian went on to say that they wrote this nasty note on her receipt and did not even leave her a tip. Well, last night on the local NBC4 station out of New York City, which is the closest market to where this restaurant takes place, detailed some new developments in that. And Kevin McCullough wanted to make sure you had the very latest, so let's go to the videotape.
When a New Jersey waitress said she was stiffed on a tip because of her lifestyle, the sympathy and the cash came pouring in.
I'm donating pretty much $3,000.
News 4 is one of many media outlets that reported on the former Marine's shocking and offensive story.
People are very ignorant. They should be ashamed of themselves if you're watching.
There was one couple who was watching and took those words to heart.
Don't think that way. Most tolerant people. I don't care what you do in your life. If you're a good person.
I sat down with a couple who asked we not show their faces. They told me it was their family who Morales served that night, and their customer copy of the check proves Morales' version of the story doesn't add up.
100% you know that's your check.
Yeah, I can actually tell it's my name under the fuzzed out name.
In fact, both copies of the check have the same date, timestamp, but the totals are different. The family says they left an $18 tip. They even provided News 4 their credit card statement showing those charges on their Visa. That's something that also puzzled the restaurant manager.
So why would her credit card be charged this much, $111.55, including a 20% tip?
How do you know this is not copy? You know, to make it.
Because I have a copy of her credit card statement being charged this amount.
And that message, I'm sorry, but I cannot tip because I do not agree with your lifestyle and how you live your life, the couple says it's not even their handwriting.
And I said, oh my God, she's doctored up our check.
They just said it's possible you made this up because this isn't their handwriting and this isn't how they left the check.
That's not my handwriting. I don't know. Again, I don't know.
Tonight, we talked to Morales, who's sticking with her story and says she's certain she wasn't tipped.
You see why they're upset?
I guess. I mean, I'm sure.
Because it's a disgusting thing to do, to write that, you know, the restaurant profits from this. Obviously, Dana is profiting from this. And it's fraud. It's a scam.
In a statement to News 4, Gallup Restaurant says it opened an internal investigation, and Morales is still waiting tables. And this family, who says they've dined at Gallup many times before, well, they say they have no intentions of going back.
I think there's enough hate and intolerance in the world that to create it when it wasn't there is shameful and dishonorable.
Now, the family believes what may have happened is this was just triggered by a misunderstanding. The family says they were told their server's name was Dan, not Dana. Dana did say that. The family called her Dan and says she was offended and reported it to managers. Sheba?
All right, so whatever happened with the name being confused with one for the other, the outcome of this is very intriguing. It's very intriguing. I'm a little bit beside myself because sometimes it does seem like people that believe in family values can't seem to, in a society, coexist with people that are engaged in homosexual activity. Now, there were many different series of societies in which certain amounts of activity were illegal, but in this particular case, we are constantly told that the hate, that the manipulation, that the wrongdoing from one side to the other is constantly family values people, Bible-thumping people, church-going people, family-oriented people. We're told again and again it's always them going against those that engage in the homosexual activity. Increasingly seldom, it's not who the media says that's actually doing this. Increasingly, what is happening is you have people with a chip on their shoulder, a hurt in their heart, whatever it is that this young woman is feeling or dealing with or in some way frustrated about. There is an attempt to lash out at people, and look at what happened in this case. In this particular case, the family not only tipped her for her service, they tipped her 20%, which proper etiquette is 15, so she 5 above what is expected. They did it. They went home. They slept in peace. They got their credit card statement. It was on the bill. Everything was as it was supposed to be. She took a blank copy of that receipt, probably the copy that they did not sign, and decided that they were, that for just whatever reason, this needed to be done. So she either had someone else write it or it's in her handwriting. It hasn't been tested yet. We'll know if they put that under, if the internal investigation that the restaurant does puts that under any type of scrutiny, she better pray that that's not her handwriting. Because this will wholesale be a complete fraud made up by the waitress in which no one else's help was even necessary. But long story short, using the idea that this family was in some way speaking down to her or putting her down for her lifestyle created viral sympathy within social media and in some cases the actual traditional media here in New York, and she raised about $3,000 off of that, which she said she's giving it all to, a charity of some sort. But that's I'm sure that the charity doesn't even wish to be known now. And I wonder if, and kudos to NBC4 in New York for actually running the follow-up piece. I mean, this is something that they should have done if they ran the piece that was sympathetic to her in the beginning. But friends, this is the nature of the debate as it centers around this activity. There are people that do not like themselves or the lives they lead, and instead of just owning their own issues and saying, I don't like what I'm feeling about myself. I don't like my life. And instead of dealing with that in the area of what they can control and they can work on, they create an imaginary victimhood that causes them to then be a sympathetic victim hero, and they are making up false accusations against people that did not display any sort of unkindness whatsoever. And this has happened in more than one case recently. I think it's important to point this out because until we have an accurate understanding of what we're dealing with by way of the truth, there will not be progress made in her life or in the general marketplace discussion / argument of this issue. The truth is, this family, I don't know if they're church-going, Bible-thumping. I don't know anything about them. They may just be people that are completely sympathetic with her case. But for whatever reason, she took exception, for whatever reason, made up a false narrative, and for whatever reason, lied about what this family said. And I find it interesting that the restaurant, at the very minimum, is not at least suspending her from current activity. Like, and you can have an opinion on that, 888-589-8840, but until they, quote, get to the bottom of it, which I don't know how much more bottom you have to get to. You have a credit card company that confirms the transaction with the 20% tip added from their credit card service, from their portal, from their little box that they slide the magnetic strip through. Like, that's pretty precise. It's run on their card for the amount that their receipt shows. There is no transaction with a timestamp that was run for their credit card for the amount that her version of the receipt shows. This is a slam dunk case. Just flat out fraud. And she benefited from the sympathies and the hospitality and the generosity of those that gave money to her, feeling sorry for her that she had been picked on in that way. I think the least that she should end up losing is her job. But maybe there's criminal charges that should be filed. So the restaurant, I don't know. I mean, I think it's easy to understand that the restaurant should, yes, get to the bottom of it, and then perhaps take actual action on it. Let's talk to Roy in Virginia, who has an opinion about it. Hi, Roy. Welcome. You're on with Kevin McCullough. Glad you're with us.
Hey, Kevin. We're living in very fraudulent and corrupt times.
You think?
Yeah, and I think we need to add a new word to the Funky Winkerbean dictionary. What she did was she told a Benghazi, which is a lie designed to demonize Christians and further one's own selfish political agenda. And it comes from the top, the fraudulent one, President Obama, and his desire to demonize.
Well, I don't think he had anything to do with this, Mark. I mean, Roy, we can't say that he had anything to do with this transaction. That's not fair.
I'm just saying that he has set the atmosphere.
There may be a certain example that's been set. I'll grant you that. But let's not drag him into stuff that he had no responsibility for. Look, I'm all for calling a spade. But let's be accurate. Let's be fair. Because what we don't want to do is have our message compromised. See, well, while we're obliterating the confusion and clearing it out and replacing it with the truth, we don't want to be guilty of then adding confusion to the matter. So let's go to Mark in West Virginia. Hi, Mark. Welcome. You're on with Calvin McCullough. So glad you're with us.
Hey, thanks for taking my call. I'm not the same Mark, by the way, that you just spoke to.
No. That was Roy. I accidentally called him you by mistake. My bad.
Okay, then I am the Mark. Hey, well, first thing I'd like to say, as a Marine, and that woman being a Marine, that she should be ashamed of herself as a Marine because, we hold ourselves to a higher standard than most citizens because of what we gave to our country. Leaving that part out of the equation. This is really, that's a sad, sad thing because these people were, in a sense, victimized for doing everything right. This woman decided that she's going to go ahead and take advantage of a situation. She garnered this sympathy, got money for that through donations. And as far as the restaurant goes, in my opinion, they're in a critical position too, because if they manage to prove that she did this maliciously for whatever gain she got out of it, and they probably don't have a leg to stand on to terminate her. And if they do, this type of an individual, where she's going to go running right to the lawyer's office, filing lawsuit for some, bogus.
Yeah, but when you commit felony fraud, Mark, that's well documented throughout the media, and you've got story after story of people. Like, if that turns out to be her handwriting, she's going to jail. At least she should, in a fair society. Kevin McCullough coming back with Brooke Goldstein, director of the Lawfare Project, and a very important discussion from the pages of today's New York Times about Iran, what we learned about the deal, what we weren't told, and what we need to know. All of that next with the Lawfare Project director, Brooke Goldstein here. Kevin McCullough on AFA Today on AFR Talk.